Thanks to you and all of you for taking the time to come on now. I know you're all busy. So for those of you who don't know me, obviously, Abby, you already know me, but I'm Dan, and I'm here with my great friend and colleague, Melissa, who's joining us all the way from North Carolina today because of Melissa's experience in skincare and her professional background, which I'll let you say yourself in a moment, Melissa. So we're going to take maybe, like, say, up to an hour now. And what we thought was, because and excuse me, I don't know exactly what CBD and hemp knowledge you have. What Abby and I thought was that I'll take maybe 15 minutes or a bit less to give a quick CBD 101 education. If that sounds, does that sound okay, Abby? Is that all good?
Yeah,
and a quick run through of just some of the key products of Kannaway, which obviously, Abby, you've already got some of. And then I'll hand over to Melissa, who can talk more about the CBD and skincare and cannabinoids and skincare, a bit more directly relevant for you and your work. So if that sounds good, I will share my screen. Oh, and just to say, by the way, so for the, I didn't say, I've worked with Kannaway now for about 4 years. I do take CBD. I've taken CBD myself internally every day for 4 years, and I feel good on it. So, you know, it's good stuff. And I'll talk a little bit, obviously, more about that now, and then hand over to Melissa. Okay, so let me share my screen. Get rid of that one. Okay, can you all see that okay?
yeah.
Great. Okay, so we're going to talk cannabis, legal cannabis, non-psychoactive cannabis, or cannabinoids, which are these chemical compounds in the cannabis plant. Now, first of all, I thought what would be important and may come up obviously with your clients is that when most people think of cannabis, they just think of one plant. They think of marijuana, and cannabis is a family of plants, and the two main varieties of plant in that family are obviously marijuana and hemp. So in terms of the products that you have, they are hemp products, but I want to make that distinction between marijuana and hemp because it still comes up. You know, a lot of people just simply don't know that cannabis is not only marijuana. So marijuana is only grown for its psychoactive effect, right? So its psychotropic effect, because of the compound in it called THC, so tetrahydrocannabinol. Hopefully, Melissa, I've got that. I've said that correctly. So THC, it doesn't have an industrial application. It's only grown for that psychoactive effect. On the other hand, cannabis sativa, hemp, very low in THC, much higher in things like CBD and other cannabinoids. So in the cannabis plant, there are 146 cannabinoids, and so CBD and THC are only 2 of them. And as I'll explain a little bit in a minute, but you know, over the next few years, we're going to see lots more of these cannabinoid oils and products on the market, I'm sure, because there's so much research going on to the other beneficial properties of these other cannabinoids. But CBD is definitely where it's at the moment, and it does amazing stuff, as you know, as you already know. We could do a whole training session on the benefits of hemp in other ways. It's an amazing plant for lots of reasons. Amazing plant for the planet. You know, anything that you can make out of fossil fuels, you can make out of hemp. It's brilliant for the soil. It puts more oxygen back into the atmosphere than the same area of trees. You can make biofuels, you can make houses out of it with hempcrete, stronger than concrete, and all these really good things about hemp. But health-wise, it's also good, not just for things like CBD. It's packed with amino acids, omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, fiber, chlorophyll, flavonoids, all these sort of good things from the hemp plant. So obviously I'm going to focus, and myself and Melissa are mainly going to focus on CBD, but it is an amazing plant for other reasons as well. Just a quick background, because again, I find it interesting, so I hope you do, is that the history of hemp, it was, and this is one of the big reasons why it's suddenly blown up as an industry and there's so much interest in it. Hemp was in our food chain all around the world. It was fed to our livestock, so when we were eating eggs and meat, and we were taking in cannabinoids like CBD. In the 1800s, amazingly, you know, it was also in 80 to 90% of our prescribed medicines. So whether that was cannabis from hemp or marijuana, it was in medicine. And so the thought is that the big thing about what's happening now is, hang on a minute, this is something that was extremely beneficial that has been out of our food, out of our systems for like 80 years, because in the 1930s, basically other industrial interests saw hemp as a massive threat. So the paper industry, the cotton industry, the petrochemical industry, and there was this campaign in the States to vilify hemp, to lump it in with marijuana as being this dangerous psychoactive thing. And the result of that was the Marijuana Tax Act, and it made hemp too expensive to grow. And then after the Second World War, it was actually banned, and it was removed from our food chains. And so this is what's so important about, oh, we're now legal again, and we've got something really important back that we did have before, and we haven't had for the last 80 years. So just a little bit of science coming a bit forward. In the 1960s, with the research that was still going on, CBD and THC were identified as molecules. And then in the 1990s, this guy, an Israeli professor, Professor Raphael Mechoulam, identified this 12th system in the body of the endocannabinoid system. And when I think of CBD, let's say whether you're rubbing it in topically, but let's say if you're ingesting it, it's simply food for the endocannabinoid system. That's all it is. It's not some magic thing. It's just feeding this extraordinary system in the body called the endocannabinoid system. And when this was identified, obviously there on screen, I've just got listed the 11 major systems in the body, which obviously we'll all recognize. And the endocannabinoid system has been identified as this 12th major system, which is this network of trillions of cannabinoid receptors on the outside of trillions of cells, which are mainly in the brain, the central nervous system, and in peripheral organs like the lungs, for instance. And the job, my screen's going to move, the job of this system, it's like the master puppeteer keeping all the other systems in balance. It works at system level rather than, let's say, drugs working at symptom level. It works at system level to help keep the body in balance. And it is the body's largest system for self-regulation, homeostasis, balance. That's its job. So we produce cannabinoids naturally anyway. So chemically identical, for instance, to let's say CBD, we produce these cannabinoids, endogenous cannabinoids called anandamide and 2-AG. So we produce them, but we haven't been getting a good plant source of them like from hemp. And when I was first told about the endocannabinoid system, I thought it was interesting that I didn't know we produce them naturally. We can increase our own cannabinoid level by things like exercise, good sleep. Apparently having cold showers increases our endocannabinoid level. So we produce these things naturally. So CBD is just a plant source of something we produce. But the problem is the ones that we produce naturally, they degrade really quickly, and particularly with pollution and stress. So they don't last very long in the body. So that's why it's thought really good to supplement from a plant source. Hemp is the best plant source, generally acknowledged as the best one. So you can get CBD and things like echinacea, flax, tea, but hemp is really the best, strongest source of CBD and other cannabinoids. So we're really just supplementing what the body already has. I've just got one slide here about us, right? Obviously, Melissa and I work with Canaway. So really important company in the industry. The company that started the industry, or let's say our parent company, started by this guy, Dr. Stuart Titus. He was originally, when he set up Medical Marijuana, that was at that time a marijuana research company. And then he saw through some research about CBD and cannabis generally, he thought, hang on a minute, what could we do with all the cannabinoids like CBD coming from the hemp plant rather than the marijuana plant, particularly because that would have been easier legally to do that. And then he founded Canaway really as the route to market for CBD and these non-psychoactive cannabinoids. Canaway is a really, really important company. So what, not just because they started the industry, but I think the only CBD company to address the World Health Organization, still the only CBD in the world that's listed as an approved medical treatment, helping to change laws around the world, many countries around the world. So still the leading company in the world for quality and safety and benefit, what therapeutical benefits the oils are giving, whether they're rubbed in topically or drunk, ingested. Another big thing, and I know, Abby, that this is kind of why we've talked about Canaway's products. Obviously, it's a very big industry now. There are hundreds, well, probably thousands of CBD companies in the world. But when independent tests are done on products, very, very few of them actually have in the bottles what they say on the labels. It's still the Wild West out there. Obviously, there are fewer checks in the food supplement industry than there are in the pharmaceutical industry. So somebody really has to do their due diligence to know they're getting a good product. Now, that can be quite hard to know what a good product is. But I would say with Canaway that really the main thing I'd be thinking for you all at Kicks is Canaway is a safe pair of hands in terms of the products. They're trustable, started the industry, lead the industry, everything is extremely high quality. So that's sort of the main thing I would want to get across about the quality of products. A quick thing about something that you will have in all the Canaway products. There's isolate, broad spectrum, and full spectrum in products. So as you can see on the screen here, really, isolate is where just the molecule of CBD is isolated, and that's all you're getting. Most companies, even if they do let's say a broad spectrum or full spectrum product, which is where you've got lots of cannabinoids and lots of hemp plant material in the products, they will use an isolate form of CBD in powdered form, and then they'll mix in other powders and oils and say, hey, presto, we got a broad spectrum product. And it's nowhere near as good as if your starting material in a bottle of something is raw hemp juice, and then that is refined to make it higher in CBD concentration or CBG or other things that are to process that bottle to produce a final product. So all the products that, Abby, that you've already got from us, and any others that you order in the future, they are broad spectrum, proper, true broad spectrum CBD oils. So it means they've got lots of cannabinoids, not just CBD. They've got plant material, they've got the fiber, the terpenes, the flavonoids, the chlorophyll, all those other good things that they give the product something called an entourage effect, which is basically you've got the synergy of all those hemp compounds giving more of a benefit than if you just isolated molecules and then randomly stuck them together. Full spectrum products are ones which also have THC, so they got a little bit of the psychoactive compound of THC. Melissa will have some of those in the States because we have a range in the States which has some THC in it. I think it's up to 0.3%, isn't it, Melissa, I think for you. But for the UK and Europe, Canaway have made a call to be zero detectable THC. So anything that you get here in a Canaway product will have zero THC. Okay, so coming on to just a last sort of 3, 4, 5 screens from me about some key products. Obviously, you'll already have seen some of these because you've got some of these. Actually, particularly those ones on screen. So first of all, just a little quick cheat sheet about Canaway's CBD. Yes, natural products. Organic soil is massively important for a CBD product because hemp grows very deep in the soil, and it is often planted specifically to clean up soil because it absorbs the toxins in soil. Apparently, it was planted after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster to clean up the soil. So you've got to have clean organic soil because otherwise you're ingesting those nasties that are in non-good quality soil. They're all lab tested to a very high degree. Zero THC for the UK and Europe. No nasties or heavy metals or pesticides and things like that in the oils. So they're just really good products. So in terms of the products, I mean, that big bottle on the left, one that I've got here in front of me, is the one I tend to take on a daily basis, although I take quite a few. The Pure Gold range, and I know, Abby, that you've already got from us, you've got 2 of those bottles. You've got the big bottle and the little bottle. Yeah. This is really, it's premium CBD and cannabinoid oil. It's really the best way of somebody taking a daily serving of CBD. What you've got on screen there are just different amounts of CBD in the bottles. I know, Abby, you've got a 500 milligram bottle and a 1,000 milligram bottle. There's one that's 250 milligrams. The capsules, which are often more popular with children, for instance, or just portability, they've got 25 milligrams per capsule. They're all CBD in a carrier oil that is either MCT oil from sustainably sourced coconut, or they are an entirely hemp product. So it's hemp and CBD in hemp seed oil. That's one of the other two or three other bottles that we've got. And the other really thing in terms of quality of an oil, this is the oil which is still, as I say, it's the only CBD in the world that is listed in some countries as a medically approved treatment, even though we can't sell it medically, and it's legal as a food supplement, but it's just to show the quality. And in Melissa's part of the world, in the States, it's the only CBD oil in a guide called the Prescriber's Digital Reference, which is a reference guide for healthcare professionals in the States when they want to recommend or prescribe CBD. So it's a very high quality oil. Coming on to green hemp oil. So, when I said that with the Canaway oils, or I hope I said this, that they start, instead of, let's say, starting with an isolate CBD molecule and then bunging in other things, we always start with raw hemp juice, and then that's refined to produce something like the pure gold range, the gold form of the oil. So the green oil, I've got one here, and I think, Abby, maybe you got one of these from me as well. So the green hemp oil is essentially like juicing a hemp plant. It's a much more raw form of the oil. It's a much more bitter, earthy taste. It's really good. It's got this CBD in its acid form, which for many people can give extra benefits in a few areas. One can be sleep. So CBD, regular pure gold CBD, is often used to help people sleep, but the green oil in the green hemp oil can be better to help people sleep. It can be even better for inflammatory pain, and if people take it in the morning, they often report that it can give them more focus. So focus and concentration, this can be a good one, and it's said to have an extra kind of purifying effect. So some people report weight loss when they're taking this oil. So just a much, you've got all of the plant material in this as a sort of a more raw product. CBG, cannabigerol, not CBD, it's just another cannabinoid in this group of 146 of them. A really interesting one. It's called the mother of all cannabinoids because it's the first cannabinoid in the cannabis plant, which then turns into either CBD or THC or other cannabinoids. And it's often also called the happy cannabinoid because it helps to balance serotonin production in the brain. So it's a mood lifter. So often people with depression will take CBG instead of CBD, or they'll take both. So in my mind, I often think of CBD as being naturally calming, and I think of CBD being a mood lifter. Now, it's not like taking a shot of caffeine, but it's that mood enhancer. So it's a really popular oil. A few companies on the market do this now, but not very many. It's a great product. Also with this one, it can be applied directly to the skin. It's strongly anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antibacterial, can be really good on dry skin and things like eczema. So it is one of the ones that you can apply directly to the skin. Abby, I don't know if we talked about these, but I just thought I'd show them because they are very popular products. These look like syringes. I promise they're not, but it's just something called an applicator like this. It's a clickable form of CBD. You just click the top and it gives a measured amount of CBD. These have CBD in their green, blue, and gold forms, like the pure gold, the active one on the left. So this is a measured amount of CBD, a very concentrated amount of CBD, and these are popular as well as a way of taking CBD. One other thing while I say it, and I could have said it on the pure gold screens, is in terms of people taking CBD orally, it's quite a varied different range that people might take, but a commonly stated recommended amount might be 40 to 50 milligrams a day. It varies greatly for people. We always say start low and work up, but 40 to 50 milligrams is often a common amount that people take. Okay, last two screens from me. Yeah, I know, Abby, we briefly mentioned these. I don't know if I had one of these with me when we met, but vaping CBD is very popular simply as a delivery mechanism of CBD. There are lots of CBD cannabinoid receptors in the lungs. So this is a really good, quick way of getting CBD into the bloodstream. And again, the ones we've got on screen there are called sleep, calm, and active. So the green form, the blue form, and the gold form of the oil. They're very, they're very good looking things. They're very discreet. So I carry one around with me generally most days as an extra portable way of taking CBD. So maybe in terms of retail that you do at Kicks, maybe these would be a popular things for people to buy. So I take my regular CBD in the morning anyway, and then I just carry this around with me if I want an extra little top up during the day. And last screen from me, leading on to more skincare, is the salve. This is an amazing product. It's a really multitasking, multi-use product. So it's a topical balm, like a waxy salve. It's a herbal botanical formulation formulated with a bee bong formula, something called a bee bong formula, which is a really good delivery mechanism and absorption for CBD. It's actually marketed, if you look on our website, it's marketed as a skin nourisher, as a moisturizer, really nourishing for skin. Most people actually buy it for pain relief. It's really good to rub into sore muscles and joints. So in terms of Kicks U and the gym, for instance, you might find it popular as retail for people to rub in after exercise. It's a really very good multi-use product. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. Thanks for listening to me talk lots about CBD and cannabinoids. Melissa, I'll stop share and hand over to you to talk a bit more specifically about skincare, if that's okay.
Of course. Hi, everyone. So great to be here. Hopefully you can hear me and we have an okay internet connection. Yeah. All right, good. I'm here because before I started in the hemp industry and working with Canaway, I spent 25 years working with L'Oreal in the dermatological skincare arena and worked for many brands. It's been fascinating, and I've used it to carry over into educating people now on the endocannabinoid system in the largest organ of their body, the skin. Our skin's so important. People really take it for, they just think about conditions on the skin and the surface that they see, and they don't think about the fact that the skin is the protective envelope. It's our defense against the outside aggressors, and it's so much more. So I want to show you a little bit more about that. But anyway, that's what I love about bringing my former education to this current world. I've been here with Canaway for 8 years now. It's just been such an educational journey. When Dan was going through all of that, I was like his champion, because it's so fascinating when you realize that they didn't know before about cannabinoids and what they can do for us all. It's like you can't forget it once you know, and you're kind of a little mad that you didn't know this from the medical community before. But we can talk about at the end in our Q&A section about how to use some of those products that Dan showed in topical skincare or massage applications, body, face, all of that. I've worked with spas in the UK and the US that do incorporate the products. So any advice you need on that and how to do that with different treatments you have. I was looking at the list of services you have, and it's very extensive. It's very impressive to see. I looked over your website, and one of the things that I've personally had is dermaplaning. We did that at La Roche-Posay, one of the French companies that I worked with. And it's so amazing how your skin just has that moment of get everything in as deep as possible, right after dermaplaning. I'm sure other procedures too, but that one just back a memory of how I wish back in the day when we were doing that, when I was with L'Oreal, we had cannabinoids to put on afterward, because it would have been so amazing, the results afterward. So with that being said, I have a little presentation, so I'm going to share my screen. Some of this is probably things that you already know, and some of this is that
Oh, Melissa's frozen.
Ah.
We just lost you there for a minute, Melissa.
Here. I have to turn my.
Oh, sorry, team. Hopefully Melissa will unfreeze. Hey, Melissa.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, you guys. See?
Yep.
Am I back? Okay.
Back.
I turned my video off because I think that will help the communication here. So let's go.
Sounds
so
good.
This, you're probably very familiar with this diagram of the skin. And this is something that probably in aesthetics school you see, and maybe this is a little more in depth than the diagram that we used in cosmetics, but we're familiar with this and we see all of the different elements. And when I go through the animation with you, it's going to animate this and put it in terms of how, when you use cannabinoids on the skin, how it activates all of these mini organs. Because remember, the endocannabinoid system is in all of our major organs, and it's also in every cell of the skin, and in every mini organ of the skin has its own endocannabinoid system. And that's the part that I think a lot of people don't realize. And no one trains us on this when we take skincare education or aesthetic education. So I thought this was fascinating to see that you see all of the layers of the skin, and we learn about all of the multitude of functions that take place and the things that we can affect with our treatments, and those that we maybe cannot quite get to because they're so deep. Like you see things in that hypodermis area way at the bottom, you know, the fat cells and all of that. We think more plastic surgery, right? We think more invasive procedures that affect that area. But when you're working with cannabinoids, they can deliver things deeper than you once thought and activate systems, because it's like a chain reaction. When you're putting something on the surface, it's creating a chain reaction with all of the fibers and the cells and all of the systems when the endocannabinoid system is actually working properly and in homeostasis, which is a term we like to use that helps us balance efficiently that they were meant to. So these are just a few points. I will send this. I'm not going to read this to you today just because of time, but I will send this to Dan so he can forward this to you. But I think the main thing here is just to remember that the endocannabinoid receptor sites are all throughout the skin's mini organs, and they are regulated by CBD. They are fed by CBD. So if we're kind of think about it as a 360-degree approach, if you put them on topically and you're ingesting them, think about the two shall meet in the middle, and you're really fully nourishing your body. So if you're giving someone a treatment and incorporating cannabinoid products, a follow-up take-home ingestible product could be very helpful to the end result, especially if you're treating someone with atopic conditions like acne and severe skin conditions and sensitivity and so many things that need long-term care to manage. You have to think about the internal as well as the topical. So here is an example before we get into animation. This is just a still. And if anybody wants to take a screenshot of this too, you can take it, but I will be sending it to you. This shows you where all of the receptor sites are in the skin's layers in a more simplified version than the picture we saw before. So if you can see here, you have, of course, the epidermis at the top, and we're going to break this all down. But the main function here is cell renewal. We know this. Cells are born, they reach the surface, and they die. It's this process that a young skin takes about 15 is to accomplish, and an older skin can take longer, hence the signs of aging that start to reveal themselves. So this area is very important, and this is an area that we can directly affect with our skincare treatments and our skincare experience that we have, and we know this. But down below in the dermis levels, where all the activity is going on, we have the immune cells, we have the sebaceous gland, the hair follicle, and you see at the base of each of these glands and cells, there are CB1 and or CB2 receptors. These are just the little receptor sites that live on the endocannabinoid system that when you feed the CBD to it, they turn on. So that's all that means. And you want to turn on the CB1 and the CB2. That's the important part. That's why the broad spectrum is so important, because you want to have the entourage effect. If you're only turning on the CB1 receptors, you're only going to get half of the result. So you're lucky that you have the green hemp oil and the pure gold to work with here, and the salve. The salve is actually a full spectrum product, believe it or not. It is allowed in the UK being full spectrum because it is only topical and not ingested. So I can see where you're, giving a massage with the salve, and then someone is being treated like a serum with the pure gold and taking it home to ingest. And what a beautiful thing that would be. What a all-encompassing ritual that someone could create with their skincare routine. So, all the way down to the sensory nerves and the sweat glands, all of these systems are affected by CBD. Here, and this work. The animated slide, see it or not? Can you see the animation, Dan?
Not yet, Melissa.
Okay, tell me when you can see it. I think it's loading. I can see it on my screen.
If not, it's something I can always send to Abby, but not yet.
Okay, all right. Let's try a different way of sharing it.
Cool.
Do you have any questions so far while I'm pulling up the animation separately from the presentation? It's great. It says it. Okay. See it.
We can see that, yeah.
So you see it moving?
Oh, not moving. It's static.
It may have a delay. There was a little delay on my side with you. I think it's our connection.
Okay. Oh, it's
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be so bear with me. I will go slowly. This is fascinating, and I will of course send you this link because you can review this and you can actually see the layers of the skin animated. This first part is really just showing us the role of each layer of the skin. And it's a little review from school, I'm sure, for you guys, those of you that have been trained and you're experts already. But, it's fascinating to remember the epidermis as a physical barrier from microbial invasion, and to keep allergens out and all of that. And I think that we forget about that part. We think about it in terms of cell renewal for the most part, but I just wanted to zip through this first part so we can get to the ECS part. This is an animation of the middle layer, the dermis of the skin, so that you can see the mini organs. And then the text there in the box, whether you're seeing it or not yet, it will appear. Okay, it's talking about the fact that this layer, and I forget this all of the time, it regulates body temperature, it creates hormones, steroids, vitamin D, and it plays a role in the skin's immune defense. So we think a lot about immunity, especially over the last few years, right, guys, with all the stuff going on in the world. But our skin is one of the barriers to that, that helps keep us safe. And when the skin is weak and defenseless and dry and just open to invasion, it can create problems for the rest of our body. Our skin is the gateway for all of these things. And so people don't place as much importance on it as we should. And I know I'm singing to your song here. I'm sure you're educating people all the time about taking care of your skin and how important that is. So, even down to these immune cells, they're called the Langerhans cells, as a refresher for all of us, but they sense danger and they live to protect us. And so they must be strong and they must be nourished. And one of the ways we nourish these is with cannabinoids and keep strong. That green hemp oil, by the way, is one of the key defense mechanisms against viruses and invaders that we have. Full stop. Because of that CBDA that Dan mentioned, it is so important for our bodies in this day and age when all of these invaders are prevalent, that's the key ingestible ingredient that we need right now, FYI. And then just a minute about the sensory nerves. There's still a lot of research being done on these, but our skin is our biggest sensory detector, and it's really important to protect us against all of this. So even from a skincare point of view, we need to protect these sensory nerves so that they can function. Now, getting into these endocannabinoids, let me reduce my screen for a second. Okay. These molecules that you saw in the first diagram, it's not important to know what all of these things are called, these big words, anandamide and 2-AG. These are just the real molecules that exist in this endocannabinoid system that do the work. And these are constantly being released when the skin is healthy and the body is healthy. It's called the endocannabinoid tone. And this is a very new term to most of us, but really what it's telling us is that these molecules will help with so many things in all layers of the skin. So when we kind of go a little bit deeper, we see that it affects all of the skin's compartments, all of the cell types. And this is why we want a healthy physiological function so that our skin can function correctly. So here's the little receptor sites that we tend to talk about that are all throughout the body. That diagram that Dan showed with the skin, with the people, the bodies, and all the little dots with the receptor sites. These are both very important, as I said, to activate in the body. And we need broad or full spectrum to activate both of these, which are present in all of these cells of the body, these millions of cells. So first of all, how does it affect the epidermis? The first thing that this does in the epidermis is it helps the cell renewal process. And again, they're using, these huge college words here, proliferation and differentiation and apoptosis. And I feel like I'm in medical school, but the reality is that this is all for the healthy defense of the surface of the skin and to prevent inflammation from getting deeper into the skin, a very important role. Now we get to, again, the immune cells, which is all important. And we don't think about it as much when we talk about skin because we think about aging and prevention and correction. But again, these are taking a huge role when it comes to inflammation. And we know that aging and any illness or any atopic skin condition is caused from inflammation at the core root of it. So when we can prevent the inflammation or slow it down, we can prevent the inflammatory and immune related diseases in the skin. They're even going to produce drugs that are focused on this based on cannabinoids. And a lot of that research is being done in part through a partnership with two medical companies that our company is doing research with on cannabinoids. So that's very exciting for the future. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we have our solutions that come directly from the beautiful plant. And even on the hair follicle, we think about the hair follicle and, how important it is for the skin, but we also think about the worries that people have about hair growth and hair loss. And the endocannabinoid system is also responsible for that. Cannabinoids can help with that. We've heard people, growing back hair and eyebrows and eyelashes and all kinds of things, especially after chemotherapy and different things that they go through. And cannabinoids play a key role in that. And then we have our sebaceous glands. We know they're important, and most people think about them only when they're overacting and they have oily skin or acneic skin or breakouts, etc. But of course, we know that the sebum that is released from the sebaceous gland is very important for creating that hydrolipidic film on the surface of the skin, which protects us from those invaders. However, it needs to be kept in balance because we know they can become, overactive, and that also can be controlled with cannabinoids. Some people actually put the salve on their skin when they have acne, and you wouldn't think of something that thick and unctuous on the skin that has acne, but because it is focused on inflammation, it's amazing the results one can get. So don't be afraid to go there. Then we have the sweat glands, and this is another area that is being researched, but the endocannabinoid system is found in those. And we know that combination of oil and water creates our skin type. So the sebaceous gland plus the sweat gland creating the skin type on the surface of the skin is something that the endocannabinoid system actually controls. So if you're skin type and skin type, this is key to incorporate cannabinoids, whether topically and or internally. And then we have our nerve endings, which we don't talk about a lot, but when it comes to sensitive skin or skin that is very itchy, very dermatological functions are affected here. This is a layer that is very deep and something that is really hard to reach through skincare, but the endocannabinoid system is there. So through that chain reaction we mentioned, you can have an effect on the sensory nerves. Now, skin diseases. This is something that obviously we don't make any medical claims here and we're not doctors, but a lot of skin diseases are being treated with cannabinoids. And one of the cannabinoids that Dan mentioned earlier, CBG, has been found to be very helpful with skin, especially when it comes to acne. It's even being used in dental procedures, and there will be a line of dental products coming out to ease the pain of the gums during dental treatments and to help with periodontal disease and things like that. So it is